So I don't know if you've ever felt this. This is more for you, Brandon, as an actor. But what I was finding before I had this set up is I would get a self-tape request, and instead of being pumped that I got an audition, which normally like you get an audition from your agent, you're like, fuck yeah, okay, I'm gonna dive into the script, I'm gonna rock this. This is the one. But I started to find that I would get a self-tape request and it was like, oh shit, okay, oh man, it's a big one. And instead of being pumped that it was a big one, I'm like, I'm daunting this. And it's lots of things. Maybe it's a time crunch because you're working other jobs, or you're on set, or you're traveling, so you're trying to figure out like, when am I going to do this? Sometimes it's tech woes, like, okay, now I got to set up a tripod, I got to get a backdrop, it's got to be somewhere where it's quiet. I got family, I got dogs, I got traffic, I got sirens. Sometimes it's bugging flaky family members and friends. That's the issue. Maybe you have a great home setup, but the issue for most people isn't tech. Our cell phones are more than enough to shoot. If you have decent lighting, you can usually get it done. You don't need a fancy microphone per se, as long as you can hear you. But the missing part is often having a reader. Family members, obviously, like sometimes they're not actors. It's just, it can be hard to even get them to be able to speak like a human being. And even actor friends, the challenge with actors is our schedules are so like they just shift all the time. They're very last minute. So you could pin down a friend and be like, okay, tomorrow at 11, I need you here, but the deadline's at 1. And then you get a call from them saying like, shit, man, I got an audition, or I got a call back, or maybe they're even flakier than that. And they're just like, I went to the beach. And all of a sudden you're left in the lurch figuring like, what am I going to do? And all these terrible solutions like recording your own voice in a tape recorder, or doing weird things like that, or faking it, or whatever you can do. Also, people travel. If you're on a vacation, if you've ever been on set and you get an incoming self-tape request, that's kind of a whole other anxiety thing for people, because you're in one headspace, but you're trying to get this other thing done. And I think some of the other challenges here are self-doubt for people. So you could have all the setup, but without second eyes that you trust, like, does your uncle that's reading with you, or does your spouse, or a random non-actor friend really have the eyes? Are you going to get an opinion? If you're watching a tape and you're like, which one is my best take? Having someone who's in the business, who's an actor, who's maybe directed, who just maybe has just been through it as an actor, is a huge help, I find. And then for other people, it's file transfer. Like people who aren't techie and they're like, I got to WeTransfer it, I got to upload it. Like some people's agents do it for them. Some people's agents don't do it for them. So there's just all this anxiety. And then on top of that, this last thing is just a lot of people as an actor, on top of all the problems of just the logistics of self-taping, they're sort of starving artists. They're crunch for money, trying to balance Joe jobs. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Brandon. The point of Laughing Vikings here for me initially was, how can I work in the business and stay in the business, stay sharp myself, provide a resource for other actors, not have to do things that take me away from the business and just suck my soul. And I think Laughing Vikings hopefully has solved all of those as a resource and as a studio here. So can you guys relate to some of that stuff? I'd maybe throw it back at you, probably Brandon mostly.
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of when I first started out, I had no idea what WeTransfer was nor how to use it, and it's become second nature to me now. But like starting out was tough, and like all of these things have happened at some point or another. Like 90% of the time, I don't have family that's doing my self tapes with me. I did have to do it before, and that was interesting. But like you want someone that's confident. You want someone that's there to like be a second eye, that is ready and willing to help you no matter what. And like that's always what I do when I'm working with people doing self tapes, and what I want when I'm doing self tapes. So like that's always what I'm looking for.
Awesome. Sweet. And I don't know, Nick, if you've helped people, or maybe you've been on the other side of things, like where you've been casting for
Yeah.
positions, and you see the worst looking amateur shaky handy cam, like versus someone who looks like they're in a studio and it's decently framed and you can hear them and see them.
Yeah, I've definitely seen lots of that during casting. Lots of people who you can even tell in the tape that there's some anxiety there and they're not totally confident in what they're providing to you. And even in emails that I get from actors, sometimes they're like, you know, this isn't my best, but here you go. And they like try to like help their case through the email and everything. And
Awful.
I know. And I'm just like, just believe in yourself. That's all you have to do.
Right.
Like for me, like I don't judge for tapes based on like how high quality your setup is, because some people, you know, don't have access to a studio. Like if you can find a quiet space and get decent lighting and you're using your phone, I'm not going to judge that any less than, you know, if you were going to film at like a studio or something. But, you know, I think it really does help in terms of like that self-doubt and the anxiety and just, you know, having a second pair of eyes. And I get lots of actor friends who send me their tapes before they send it off to the people that are casting, just to be like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, is there anything that you'd recommend? So I do like, I have given lots of advice in terms of self-tapes and everything, even though I'm not someone who does them myself. I've been able to give a professional eye before they've sent it off to whomever is casting, and that usually gives them a little bit more confidence as well.
Wicked. So that all of those things are really why Laughing Vikings as a self-tape studio exists, and really I think we've solved most of those problems for clients, actors. Really, what I want to get into is just a little bit of how we run the sessions, a little bit of training. First thing is good vibes only. Everything positive. This is a play space, a positive space. So I'm always looking for people who are optimists, who are upbeat, who are positive, who bring a level of energy and joy to their life and to their work. And in session runners, that's so important. One thing that happens, and I'm sure you guys realize this, the world is a cynical place. It can be tough. It's tough right now for everyone with COVID and with all of the other human rights and civil rights. All of that stuff weighs heavy on us. But from the moment from action to cut, that needs to be a safe space where it's fun, it's creative. People can't have all the other shit weighing them down. And actors sometimes can let that stuff get in. So you'd be surprised. I sometimes have actors come in here, the first words out of their mouth are, I'm like, hey man, good to see you. You ready to do this? And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't have much time to do this, or I just got this, I don't have my lines, or this one isn't for me, or the writing sucks, or I don't even know why my agent sent this to me. And in my head, I'm like, what the fuck are you even doing here then? Like you've already, like in my head, I'm like, you keep thinking like that, you've already lost. Like why did you just pay us $50 to come audition for something that you don't even think you're going to get? That makes no sense to me. So really, I want you guys to sort of be a champion of positivity and sort of provide the air cover for people's headspace so that that isn't there. And sometimes that means when someone comes in, it's easy to go down that like negative Nancy train of where you start, oh yeah, I know it sucks, right? Or like, geez, it's so hard. Like just don't be the misery loves company people, be the people to bring them up. So I would say, like, if someone walks in and they're like, oh man, I haven't had much time. Oh, no worries. We'll work it right away. We got you. We'll get it. You're a pro. Like we should all be able to take a script and within a few minutes of a cold read, be able to nail it or present something. And we have an hour. So just keeping it positive. So that warm up and welcome, it's a fine line between like, if you, and I'll say this, there's a difference between if you've worked with someone before. I have regulars here and you guys will have regulars. You might have friends that you've shot with already that when they find out you're shooting here, they'll be like, oh, sweet, I'll come here and book with you. If it's someone new and you've never worked with, there's a little bit of rapport building and a little bit of making them comfortable. So positive meet and greet. Hey, how you doing? I always like to look up their IMDb ahead of time. So if I don't know them, do they have one credit as a short film that they wrote, or have they been on every show in Canada that you could be on? And that just kind of informs, like, am I just basically going to be pressing record and sitting back and I know that they're going to be doing their thing, or is it someone that might need a little more work and maybe a little more guidance, a little more coaching? Maybe they're new to self-tapes completely. Maybe they've never shot one before, or maybe they're a pro that I've worked with a dozen times. So I wanted you guys to welcome them. But don't get too personal also. Like, remember that the point of this is for them to book a tape. It's not to catch up and gossip. So it's that fine line. Like, I don't know, Brandon, if you've ever been in an audition room, if you walk into an audition room and there's actors that want to chit chat and they're in you, and it's like, man, I want to focus. This, if I book this right now, this could mean like all of my dreams. It could be 5 figures, 6 figures. It could be the thing that sets me off forever. So I don't really want to chit chat too much, enough to make them feel good, catch up. But then what do we got? Get them in the back room. When you welcome them, there's sanitizer here. So COVID stuff, I'll kind of talk a little bit about that throughout, but sanitizer, we wear masks. They arrive in masks, make sure people sanitize, and then head into the back room. Some technical stuff. We shoot generally medium to medium close. So like chest up kind of thing. That varies. If it's mocap, we might be shooting 3/4. If it's something that really tight or really emotional, maybe it's like a tighter, like not a super close up, but a little tighter. If it's a role that's physical, or maybe the actor is very physical, then maybe you'd go a little wider. The camera, I sent you guys that tutorial. It's a Panasonic VC, or what is it? Panasonic HC-V770. It's really simple, point and click, basically. There's nothing too fancy. It takes a card. You guys both have laptops?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I often have mine here, but I would prefer if you guys have your own. That way, if mine's ever not here, if I have to be using it for something else, then I just know that you guys are kind of your own self-contained production company with the laptop. So in there's the mark. Technical things, keep your distance as well. COVID, like, there's no reason to be. Back in the day, we used to huddle over a monitor. We don't need to do that. There's a monitor in the studio, but when you're reviewing, again, keep your distance from people. I like to, as soon as we get in, ask them whether they want to read or whether they want to jump into it. I think some people are prepped where they're just raring to go. Other people, they got it 2 hours ago and they have barely even read the words yet, and they're not off book. So you might spend, your time might be better spent spending 15 minutes running it, and then go to tape. Other people turn on the camera and 1 take, 2 take, 3 takes, done, and you're out of here. But also, before you do that, just sort of, I'm a big fan of tell people what you're gonna do so that they have a structure. So like, okay, here's what we're gonna do, throw your stuff down. So be a director from the get-go so that they feel like they're in good hands, especially if it's someone who hasn't been here. So throw your stuff here, we'll go in the back, we'll read it a few times, and then we'll shoot. At any point, if you want me to, if you want to watch it, we can watch it on the monitor. You tell me if you need any adjustments. And then I always tell them, as far as directing or coaching, I say up front, like, I'm an actor, I've done tons of these. If I don't know you, I might say, I don't really know you as much. But what I'll do is, if I have any creative ideas or thoughts, I'll throw them at you. Feel free to take them or leave them. So it's very low pressure. Like, sometimes people have their preconceived ideas. They've done tons of prep and you don't need to do anything. They got it. They're here for you to record and read. Other people, they're really welcoming of that, or they really need it to get their tape from like here to here, where it's like so, and then boom, this is going to be the one that books them. So sort of feel that out, but offer it. but don't jam it down their throat, and don't be offended or take it personal if someone doesn't take your redirect or your idea. I tend to throw ideas out. If it's technical things, eye lines are huge. Most people throw their eye lines way too wide, so bring people's eye lines tight, or maybe if they haven't separated characters clearly, or maybe there's a kid, so there's a point a toddler runs up to them and the eye line shouldn't be as the same height as an adult. They need to skew an eye line. So little technical things like that. I like to focus on entrances and exits. So the first beat, the last beat, it's people remember their first impression and the last impression. So if you blow the first line, there's a really good chance the casting director is not watching the rest of it. If it's just something's off or it's weak, it's not a strong choice. And the last line, that last moment, is there an opportunity to throw in a button? Is there a little extra moment? Same thing, is there the moment before? To me, those are the things that can make a great tape go from good to great. I also focus on a lot of the comedic stuff, a lot of the physical stuff. If there's some kind of physicality, some little movement, I'm kind of, it sort of drives me crazy, the age of just like actors who just stand still. Like, you got to be still, and it is about close-ups and it is about stillness. But if you're just a talking head and they're watching 50 tapes and it's just a frame of someone's head going blah 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 blah, that to me doesn't cut it. So there has to be some movement, some physicality. Maybe there is a little prop, just something extra. For me, it's like, what are the little creative things that each actor, or if it's my tape, what are the things that I can do that are unique to me, that tells the story in the scene the most creative way, that's unique to me, but not unique to me for the sake of being unique to me for the sake of fulfilling the obligations of the story, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys?
Right.
Okay, so just, that's kind of a little bit of my philosophy. I don't get into, like, I don't overcoach people, but I don't let them stop. This is the thing I don't let people do. Yeah, that's good enough. I'm like, is it good enough or is it great? Like, we got time. Let's do one more. Like, we don't want people walking out of here going like, yeah, that was me saying the words. That's what I looked like. It's like, one person wins this race, and only one person gets it. And there's more wins than getting the role. Maybe you have a great impression, so they have you in mind for next time. But really, you want that win. So work extra with people and really see it as your tape. Because this is huge opportunities for people. Like, this, literally every opportunity could be the life changer or the career maker for someone. So I really want you guys to have that mentality of, like, not just you're here to fulfill, like, press play, press record, but you're here to help these people make sure that they leave with something that's certainly at least better than if they had have not taped here, if that makes sense. Like, you can't, not every, like, I've had people come and in my head I'm like, is that going to book the role? Maybe not. But I do know that when they came in, they were here, and when they left, we were here. So I at least know that we provided the value, in addition to, we're providing the technical space, we're providing a reader, we're doing all that, but trying to help them grow and get to a better spot. Editing, just real quick on editing, you guys can edit on whatever you want. Generally, I put quick fades in between scenes, and I fade between tail slate. I generally like tail slates, but the rule is really follow the casting instructions. When people arrive, I often get them to send me the self-tape request email that their agent sent them, so I can see the specs. Because you'd be surprised how many people have no idea what they're supposed to do. They're like, oh, they wanted all separate scenes, or they wanted 2 takes of every scene, or they wanted it in an accent and in a neutral accent. And they don't tell you that shit, or they don't tell you that they wanted a slate. So you can get them to email you the thing. Some people are better than others, and you get to feel it out. Some people come in and they know exactly what you want to tell. They need this, 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 and this. Other people are like, I don't know, here's the email. So generally get that from them. It doesn't need to be super high def, like 1080, 720. If it's a long scene, you might render it a little lower. Like a lot of places are asking for like 100 megabytes, which is hard, but just don't make it massive. Like can't be sending files that are a gig to people. So keep it kind of small. File transfer, generally we use WeTransfer. I would like to continue that. One thing that's important is just consistency, so that if people come into the studio and they see Brandon, or they see me, or they see Nick, with the exception of our different personalities and maybe different coaching styles and just different vibe, I want the process to feel the same and be the same so that people know what to expect. So if we can use WeTransfer and then use the LOL at Laughing Vikings as our email, so that the reply email and the confirmations come back to me. So maybe I should just go back to that shoot, review, and move on. Generally, I rehearse and read, go to camera. If they ask to see one, we'll stop. I like to show them one early on, because if you go by feel, they can be missing eye lines, they can be missing little subtle things. And if they just had been like, oh shit, that's what I look like, they would have corrected the technical stuff right away. But then move on. Remember, our sessions are an hour, that's about 45 minutes on camera, 50 minutes, and allowing for about 10 minutes for you to do the email and to get the slate and make sure that it's going to the right spot, so that basically we're in and out within that hour, versus an hour on camera and then it's 15 minutes to figure out where it's going, and now we're 15 minutes behind. So kind of keep it moving, which means you have to look, if they have 3 scenes, you got about 15 minutes max before you got to be moving on to scene 2, which should be tons and tons of time for people. But if people come in and they have if they're not even off book, then sometimes that's the stress, is you spend the whole time in the session just trying to get them to figure out the words. Social media, we're all referrals, we're all word of mouth, we're all community and networking. And so that comes from me snapping screenshots, that comes from me encouraging people to share screenshots or little selfies out in front of the studio. So as session runners, it's in your best interest to do that too. So I would love you guys to hop on board. Hopefully Instagram is really where we do most of that. But just little things, grabbing a little blooper or outtake. Just be careful, don't reveal anything about the project, really not much script. So like if it's a little blooper line, but generally, like, I'm not posting ever sections of a script, because the last thing that you want is casting to get it. Then they're like, oh, Brandon's great, this is a great tape, let's check out his Instagram. And then, oh, fuck, Instagram, Brandon has that whole scene already on his Instagram right now. So just stills are fine, obviously, or little bits of a script that are like, there's nothing revealed in it. It's just a random line. I'm okay with that, but just nothing that would be breaking any confidentiality. So you guys should know that as actors, you know what productions do and don't like with that, and what you can get away with. So screenshots are fine, but don't be naming stuff in advance. When people book stuff, then often I'm like, hey, congratulations, so-and-so booked something on this. Like I'll do that. But sometimes I might not even name it. So just be safe, but we want to spread the word on social media, right? And then at the end of the session, encourage them, thank them for using us, encourage them to give us a review, encourage them to share a post. Like, I would just remind them, like, remember, we're all referrals, would love a shout out. If you could give us a review on Facebook or on Google, that's amazing. Share a post. And most people almost do that these days without even being asked. But please ask people to do that. So that's sort of essentially how I run the sessions and the general vibe. People need a spot where they know, not 24/7, but pretty much very reliably, they're going to have a spot to book, and they're going to get a pro to do it, and they're going to walk in, have a stress-free environment that's positive, and their agent's going to get a tape that puts them in the running for a callback.